Hello and welcome to Games That Don't Suck, a gaming retrospective in the Shea Hates Everything podcast family. My name's Kyle, I will be your host today, and I am of course joined by my brother Shea. Welcome, Shea.
Hey, thanks. Welcome, audience.
Games That Don't Suck is a series where we focus on a particular year in gaming, arguing about what the top 5 games of each year should be. And this month, we're talking about 1998. And
good year.
Yes, a good vintage for video games.
Yes, indeed.
We have a lot of games to talk about.
I know. I was gonna say, this list, I think at the end of the day is gonna feel a little top heavy.
Yeah.
But it's wide and deep. It is top heavy, but there are also, I think this might be the most games we've had within a single year to talk about.
I think you're right. Yeah.
There's like 20 games.
So it's basically what we're getting at here is 98 games that suck. We went into it not realizing how difficult it was going to be to arrive at a bottom 3.
Correct.
We already know this is going to be a really hard top 5. This is going to be a really tough one.
23 games.
Oof. That's
a lot. That's a lot of nominees.
More than 5.
Yeah. We're gonna have to cut like hard and fast. We need to.
You're right.
We tend to cut very few games and just move most things to the short list, and then once we've got that, then it becomes pretty obvious where things should be living.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's gonna happen here, because if we only end up cutting our traditional 3 to 4 games from the long list, we're gonna still have 20 games on the short list.
Yeah, you're right.
And that will become unmanageable. So we need to be brutal here if we can.
Oh, it just hurts my heart.
I agree.
Because a lot of these games are so very good.
They're all very good. Every game we're going to talk about here rules.
Yes.
Except for a couple exceptions, but that's more of me versus you thing.
Okay, yeah, that's true. But before we get to that, let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? We have to talk about some honorable mentions. And as always, our honorable mention category, these are games that we know are important or we have heard are very good. There's a lot of appreciation in gamer culture for these games. We have not played them, so we can't really talk to them. But we want to shout them out because if you're listening and you're like, hey, why did they talk about this game in their 1998 games that don't suck? It's because we haven't played it. So here are our honorable mentions. We're going to start off with Baldur's Gate, the original Baldur's Gate. Now, obviously, franchise has seen a lot of success recently with the Baldur's Gate 3, kind of a reimagining of their formula, bringing Dungeons and Dragons into kind of the cultural forefront in gaming culture, and that's kind of a cool blending there. But the first Baldur's Gate was very much a deep, systems-driven, hardcore character RPG. And had a very big cult following for a very long time. So I wanted to shout out Baldur's Gate. Next is Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard. So this is I believe this is the first 3D, fully 3D Bethesda RPG. I think the ones that came before, Arena and other stuff, those were all still using 2D sprites in a 3D plane. This is actually using polygonal character models and stuff. And obviously the centered around the race of Redguards, and kind of fleshing out that portion of the world map, which was kind of neat. And I think they took a lot of lessons from Redguard forward into Oblivion and then Skyrim and stuff in terms of how to structure their open world, how to tell their stories in those large open spaces and stuff like that. Maybe some lessons that they're still learning today. So Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, super cool game. I think there's some appreciation there with kind of a select following of Bethesda nerds like myself. What about this next one?
F-Zero X. So I actually have played this. This was the F-Zero game on 64. I just haven't played a ton of it, and so it's not something I can justify trying to argue for, but it's certainly worth calling out. This was F-Zero on the N64. That's really all you need to know. I feel like F-Zero has not gotten a lot of love from Nintendo over the years. And it unfortunately just doesn't really get a ton of love on these podcasts because the original F-Zero from Super Nintendo was before we started recording, and preceding, or I guess the F-Zero games to come either are not great or we have not played them. So this is kind of the only chance that F-Zero had. And I don't have enough personal passion for it to argue for it, but it is a very good game.
Bless you, F-Zero X. Bless you.
We need more F-Zero. The time is right.
Some people need more F-Zero.
A new F-Zero game that is different than the F-Zero 99 game that they're making.
Oh, that's right. They did that.
That does look insane.
Yeah.
A new legit F-Zero game could be cool. Yeah. Those games look great. They feel great. The speed, the futurism. It's fun.
Fallout 2. If you'll recall, on a previous year, the first Fallout was on an honorable mention. Also, we have also not played Fallout 2 either. So, yeah, you and I started the franchise at 3. So, again, we know the original 2 Fallout games have huge followings and are really, really important for the genre and the franchise. We don't have experience with them. Hexen 2 came out this year as well on PC. There was Witchfire was a game that came out in early access last year that I'm really interested in. Sort of like a roguelite game that takes a lot of sort of like setting and motif inspirations from Hexen. Phil Spencer has notably worn a Hexen shirt on stage at a press conference before, just teasing everybody. It's just a really cool boomer shooter, Hexen 2. It had like over Doom, it had more like puzzles and environmental elements to it, more platforming and stuff like that, and was like just like a little. It wasn't sci-fi. It was more fantasy, like gothic fantasy style. Then Mystical.
We need to move through these faster.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Mystical Ninja Goemon. This is a very cool one. I became aware of this watching a Giant Bomb stream that Jeff Gerstmann did at one point in the past, where he played this for a significant. It might have been like for a UPF or something. Just like a really charming, interesting character action platformer on the N64 that did. I believe it was eventually released in the United States. But this is just like a really, really strange Japanese character action platformer that has a lot of personality. Like, I think more personality than Mario 64. Like, it has more interesting gameplay mechanics and things going on. Maybe it didn't feel as good or as polished, but it was definitely, it had some really interesting ideas for the time. Next one, why don't you take it?
Yeah, let's talk about Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit. It's a very good Need for Speed game. Racing games are good. This one is an excellent one.
Is this the first one where the cops would chase you and you could like pull into someone's driveway and stop and they would pass by and lose you, or you could lose
definitely them? Can do that. I don't know if it's the first time you can do that, but given the title, that might be correct. With the police sort of AI. They did. It wasn't a remake, but they made a new Need for Speed Hot Pursuit minus the 3 moniker in the title. That was like mid 2010s, maybe.
Okay.
Which was also very fun, but this was sort of the OG version of that.
Right. I remember playing this at to call back to Games That Suck 98. Playing this at the same friend's house that we played Elf Bowling at.
Sure.
They also had this game, and I remember playing that there. So good memories of that one. I don't remember anything. Well, I don't even think I played it. I think I watched my friend play it is the majority of the experience I have with it, but I remember it being very cool. Next is Pokemon Pikachu, which was like a Tamagotchi clone where you could walk around with a little Pikachu in your pocket and take care of him, which was super cute. What a fun idea.
Yep.
That's all. It was just like a really... I just thought that was fun to throw in there. I saw it on the Wikipedia page. I was like, oh, I fucking remember this thing. We never had one, but I definitely had friends at school who had one.
For sure.
100%.
Then Soul Calibur. this is more of a nod to the classic series. Neither of us are big fighting game fans,
Right.
but the original Soul Calibur is one of the games that sort of made the fighting game transition into the mixed 2D, 3D. So good on ya. Giant sword with an eyeball on it.
StarCraft was also this year. The first StarCraft kicked off one of the most toxic gaming communities of all time. Congratulations to StarCraft.
Well, maybe the most toxic original gaming communities. Every gaming community today is more toxic than the original StarCraft. Have you seen people talk about the freaking Stellar Blade?
Well,
every game that comes out.
Maybe just because there are more people have more access to discourse now. And I'm talking in terms of in-game chat. That shit was
for sure
fucking horrible. Yeah, the first StarCraft. Good for those sickos out there.
Yeah. Suikoden 2, I added to the list. I have not played it. It is a classic JRPG. I have played Suikoden 3, so that will come up in a future year. But the second game I know is also very beloved, so wanted to mention it.
Yeah. Thief, The Dark Project. This is the game that kind of kicked off the immersive sim genre in a lot of ways. I've never played it. It has a lot of really interesting ideas, like depending on which surface you're walking on, whether it's carpeted or wood or tile, the sound carries different distances. You can alert enemies, calculating stealth based on lighting and stuff, and just a lot of really, really interesting systems. Really, I have watched gameplay of it. It seems very hard to go back to, but it's like really, really important in the kind of the pantheon of games that have led to one of my favorite genres. So for sure, Thief, The Dark Project, very cool.
Unreal, also very cool. This was a game released on the OG Unreal Engine. In case you couldn't tell from the name of the video game. This is also a precursor to one of my favorite big multiplayer first-person shooters, Unreal Tournament 2004, which is a game that I loved. I have not played the original Unreal. I've seen a buddy play it way back in the day as kids, and it is super fun and insane, and that genre, it is missed. The, crazy jumps and explosions,
the rocket
and everyone dies.
Stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a genre that sadly went away, and I wish it would come back because it's much better than the competitive multiplayer shooters that we have today. So Unreal, it's a good one also. And then finally, Xenogears, another classic RPG. Just haven't played it, man.
Without Xenogears, there would be no Xenosaga, which I would.
There would be no Gears of War.
Oh, I didn't know they were tied together.
No Xenoblade.
Xenogears, you're notoriously throwing grenades down emergence holes to.
Yes. Yeah. But we do have to blame Xenogears a little bit for xenophobia, because without Xenogears there'd be less, racism against immigrants and aliens.
True. You know what?
Too,
it's got to come off the honorable mentions
good with
list.
the bad.
Yeah.
So
Double-edged
there
sword.
you go. 15
Honorable
minutes
mentions.
in. Yeah.
Nice job, video games in '98. You've all done
just
well.
from there would be a strong top 5 just from that list.
Oh, for sure.
But we've got 23 other video games to talk about.
My God.
I will happily kick us off with the first one. I will also happily say that this one is a talk about it and then cut it. That is 1080 snowboarding, or 1080 degrees snowboarding. This was an N64 game developed by Nintendo and published by Nintendo. It has a game rankings of 89.6. This was sort of the game for me that kicked off the hysteria around extreme sports video games. So this was before the original SSX. This is before Tony Hawk took off.
Yeah.
I think there were several snowboarding games that came out this same year, or maybe in a couple year range. I don't think that 1080 was the first one per se, but
in previous episodes we've definitely talked about Cool Borders, I think, and games like that.
I guess I should say that this game was a little bit closer to a sim snowboarding game than something like Cool Borders was, which was
much more
a lot more of a... Yeah, exactly. So this is more akin to something like Tony Hawk, but for snowboarding. Certainly has arcade elements, but it's a little bit more realistic in how you do the tricks, how you do the downhill.
Right.
It had really great physics, really great, impressive snow physics, which was something that made it feel super next gen on the N64. But yeah, it didn't have like a ton of characters to play as. There weren't like a huge variety of tracks comparatively. But yeah, it was a very fun time, and like again, one of my early memories of getting really into a extreme sports video game. So worth a shout out, but not going to continue on, I don't believe.
Yeah, is this trying to look it up? It looks like this might be available on whatever, like the Nintendo N64 thing on Switch right now, like the available N64 games on Switch.
Interesting.
I think that might be available now.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, you should go back.
Yeah, I don't know. Might be a hard one to go back to because it's so much more simplified. But yeah, maybe if you're looking for some straightforward downhill fun, could be a good one.
Yeah. Next is Banjo-Kazooie on the N64. Developed by Rare, published by Nintendo, game rankings of 92.38, which is pretty damn good. This is the original kind of double character platformer collectathon game. This is what Yooka-Laylee is based off of, and like Ratchet and Clank. Like there wouldn't be Ratchet and Clank without Banjo-Kazooie.
For sure.
Like, at least not in the form in which it was. Like, the idea of having the main character with a little mascot attached to them, like, that idea kind of hatched with Banjo-Kazooie. And I just remember, because we didn't own an N64 as kids, I remember going over to friends' houses and playing this all the damn time, but never really understanding what the structure of the game was, because I would only ever play it in, like, snippets over at their houses. And so I've never actually like sat down and beat it myself, which is a regret of mine, because I know it's really, really good. But yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia and affinity for Banjo-Kazooie, not only because of what it did for the genre going forward and other games that kind of follow its lead that are really important to me, but also like those times spent at friends' houses, just having a blast because of how fun-loving it was.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. I have the same experience with it as you. I mean, it's just a factor of us never owning an N64 that it was a game that I played over at friends' houses, but never finished the whole thing. I have a lot of love and nostalgia for it because it was one of those first big, post Super Mario 64. It was like one of those big, mascot platformers that felt like an innovation compared to a game like where Crash Bandicoot was at the time, in some respects. But yeah, it's not a game that I personally am like, this is one of my favorite games ever, just because I didn't have as much exposure to it, but I do certainly love it. I feel like I would say this game should stick around.
Yeah.
Both because we both played it, we both really liked it, and it's, a classic in the genre.
Yeah. Congratulations, Banjo-Kazooie. You're going to stick around.
Yeah. Speaking of, next game on the list is Crash Bandicoot Warped. This is Crash 3. This was a PlayStation 1 game developed by Naughty Dog and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. It has a game rankings of 89.07. So Crash has had a tricky road on these podcasts. It's always like a near miss for the top 5. I think that Warped is also hard to talk about because it is definitely the best of the 3 games. It has the most variety. It looks the best. Like it's just like the second game was an impressive step up over the first. The third is an impressive step up even over the second one.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty familiar to the second game in terms of gameplay and structure. You've got the hub world. It does have some fun, like time travel-y story stuff as you're going through the different worlds and sort of trying to take down what's his face?
Cortex.
What's the bad guy's name? Thank you. Yes. So yeah, it's just hard to compare Crash to itself and also to the other games because this is the third time we've talked about Crash. It feels like less exciting.
Yeah.
But I do think the third game is the best.
I definitely have not played this one. Okay. I know I waffled a bit on the second one. And I've been recently playing through the second one. I have not gotten to the third one yet. I have that trilogy, the remaster trilogy. I'm working my way through the second one. I have not gotten to the third one yet. But I know that I have never played this one.
Man, I think we should probably cut it.
It's
I hate
shame.
to say,
it's a shame that we keep doing Crash dirty like this.
Like if it was just my top 5, it might make it. Like it wouldn't even guarantee make it. And putting it head to head against a game like Banjo, I would sooner keep Banjo just because we've both played it than Crash.
Yeah.
So that sucks. But yeah, I feel like we should probably cut it.
Okay.
Part of it's just a resignation. It's not gonna make it, so we might as well cut it now.
That's fair. Yeah. Save ourselves a little bit of pain on the back end.
Yeah. It is really, really good. Like if you know, folks that want to play the Insane trilogy, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, for sure. I've been having a really nice time doing that and the Spyro trilogy. So highly recommend those. Next is the original Final Fantasy Tactics on PlayStation 1. This was developed by Square, published by SCE in the US. Game rankings of 83.48. This is like the seminal tactics video game. There's another one that's on this list that I think is also good, but this is like the one. If I had to hold one up, there's the War of the Lions re-release of this game that is a little bit better, but I mean, like the first Final Fantasy Tactics is a truly incredible video game that like opened my mind to like I played this before I ever played chess. And I eventually grew to love chess, I think in part because of how attached I was to the tactics formula.
Interesting.
Just thought it was really, really neat. And this is not one that we owned. This is one that I would, again, play at a friend's house. We had a PS1, but not tactics. I eventually, later down the road, got the War of the Lions version on PSP and played it that way. Myself, but I spent a lot of time at some friends' houses playing Final Fantasy Tactics and watching them play and cooperatively strategizing on what moves to make and stuff like that. I just remember really, really being captured by it at the time, and currently still. I would go back and play it.
That's kind of where I am coming from it too, is like I just didn't play the original version like when it first came out, I should say,
right,
and didn't come back. I came back to it years and years later, like, you know, maybe like a decade ago, and played it just because of how highly regarded it was. It is an amazing game. The sort of like tactics games or like this strategy RPG games are less my vibe.
Right.
I tend to like more of like the active time battle stuff or more traditional turn-based stuff.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it's amazing. All the different, the roles and stuff that characters can play. And I don't know. If it sounds like you would push for it to stay, and I can get behind that.
I would, yeah. At the very least, let's keep it in the conversation.
Yeah, I can go with that. And again, like the only thing I would put against it is just it's not a game that I have played a ton of, and certainly not when it first came out.
Right.
But that's my fault. That's my bad. It's not the game's fault.
Alrighty. Next is Gauntlet Legends. This came out in arcades in '98. This was developed by Atari and published by Atari and Midway. Game rankings of 73.55. This is it's one of those arcade games that I would always gravitate to if I was there with friends. Just like picking the barbarian or the mage and just like ripping through some enemies, running through dungeons, you know, picking up your potions and stuff. Kind of introducing me to that like classic fantasy setting, that like older school fantasy setting, that like very inspired by like early D&D character archetypes and stuff like that, kind of introducing me to those. And it being like in the arcade setting was also really novel for me because we didn't go to arcades a whole bunch. There was usually like we would never go to an arcade. It would be like Dave and Buster's or like a Chuck E. Cheese or other things like that would sometimes have some of these machines. Or like the bowling alley that would have like Gauntlet in it and stuff like that. And so it's just one of those ones that holds like a special place in my heart of like a lot of fond memories. It's like the Simpsons arcade game, I would obviously, or the Power Rangers arcade game, would much rather play that over Gauntlet. But I do remember like as a kid, it felt like, oh, this is like the grown up version of those other like beat 'em ups. Because there's like it was harder, and it was like a little more. It was themed in a little bit more of a mature way, and so it felt like I was kind of getting away with something by playing it. It had kind of all of those factors working for it. I I don't think it sticks around on the short list. I just really wanted to call it out because my experience with it. And I eventually, there's a Gauntlet game on... I played it on GameCube. There's another Gauntlet Dark Legacy, I think it is. Yeah, that I think Gauntlet Dark Legacy, I spent a lot of time playing cooperative with friends. And so
Nice.
I would not have gravitated towards that at the time without prior knowledge of the Gauntlet kind of IP.
Sure. Right.
So
That
it's
makes sense.
important to me in that way too. But yeah, we can cut it.
Okay. Let's talk about Gex. Enter the Gecko.
Oh boy.
This released on PlayStation 1 and 64 and PC. This was developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Midway with a game rankings of 81.7. I believe we talked about the original Gex on both the Games That Suck and Games That Don't Suck podcast.
Yes.
Or maybe just like I certainly
I
had
wanted it on the games that suck and you wanted it on the games that don't suck.
Yes.
Is what happened.
And it did not make either list. I don't think that the original game is amazing. I have a good memory of it because of the personality, but
Right.
it's a 2D side scroller. Gex Enter the Gecko takes our little man into 3D, baby. It's a mascot platformer. I really enjoyed the personality and the characterization at the time. This Dana Gould, who was a producer writer on The Simpsons for a long time, he did the voice in all three games, but he and I think some other of the Simpsons writers did a bunch of like the Linorama stuff for this game.
Right.
So my memory is like there were a lot of quips and a lot of variety of quips because in this era, quippy games, they had a ton of repetition to them because you heard the same lines over and over again. Like, hey, we talked about games that suck with the South Park game. That's a perfect example where it's like you heard the same shit over and over. That didn't happen in this game, which was super impressive and made it fun and more, I guess, immersive in a way. I also think it had really bright and colorful environments with lots of like fun environment gags and just like pop culture references. I do not think it is like one of the great mascot platformers. It's definitely not as good as Banjo-Kazooie or as Crash, but I do have a soft spot. Much like you loved Croc as sort of like a baby's first, I think Gex is a more interesting game mechanically than something like Croc. Like it's less simple.
But
I don't think it's as good as some of the other games that we've got going on here.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
I would not keep it around.
And also, like, I like Gex Enter the Gecko. I did not like that first one, but I did like Enter the Gecko. But it's not gonna... I don't like it enough to keep it around.
Agreed. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
A lot of it is like what's funny is it's easier to let some of these games go because there are so many.
That's true. Yeah. I'm actually finding this less painful than I had anticipated.
I think by the time we finish and we look at the short list, it's still going to be tough.
Yeah.
All right. Next on the list is the original Gran Turismo, another PSX game. This was developed by Japan Studio and published by Sony Computer Entertainment. Game rankings of 94.95, which I think is one of the higher ones on here. I don't have a ton to say about Gran Turismo, honestly. I feel like my favorite Gran Turismo was GT3.
Yeah.
But we definitely played a lot of the first game. And this is a game that, like, Dad played some of. Because it was a racing game.
This is on the last we had recently answered an email about kind of where we started, where our gaming habits started, and we talked a little bit about how Dad would sometimes play a couple games with us. This was one of the ones that he would actually play, which was really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, up until the last several years, Gran Turismo was like one of the highest grossing series in video games.
Yeah.
They're certainly like really highly regarded. I would not disagree with any of that. I don't have a ton of passion for Gran Turismo for this list, unless you feel differently.
No, I agree. I will. The only thing I'll add to the discussion about it is that of all the racing games that are out there currently today, Gran Turismo would be the only one that I would maybe buy and play myself. Just because I'm not really into the racing genre anymore, but
sure,
something about the Gran Turismo car porn is very appealing.
Yeah, I kind of honestly, I kind of disagree.
Really?
For me personally, because I loved Gran Turismo at the time because of the car porn part, but I think mechanics wise, a lot of the stuff that Forza's doing, both the Horizon series and like the Forza Motorsport, is far more interesting than like what was in Gran Turismo 5, like at least what I saw from that.
Fair. Yeah, I didn't play Motorsport. I've heard that's their more simmy version.
Yes. Yes.
So I would be interested to like compare.
Because I feel like if I was going to check out a racing game, it would probably be a Forza Horizon game, just because it is very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm kind of over the sim part. Like, that was one of the things that made Gran Turismo so amazing, is it had all the cars. Like, I used to be a huge car head. Like, I loved fancy cars, and I knew all the cars, and, like, that was what was cool about Gran Turismo. And now all the cars in every racing game look unbelievably realistic, and so it doesn't feel as special anymore.
It doesn't have the differentiator anymore.
Yeah. It's just more of a, not in a bad way, but more of like a stiff sim controlling racing game.
Yeah.
Which I just find to be less interesting personally.
Yeah, you're probably
But the original, I mean, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
All these games are great.
that is clear. Next, speaking of great games, man, Grim Fandango on Windows. This was developed by LucasArts and published by them. Has a game rankings of 92.97. One of the greatest adventure games of all time. Just packed full of personality and vibrancy and like spectacular writing, tone. Everything about it was elevated over, like, you know, the Nancy Drew adventure games of the day, right? Like, Grim Fandango, like, pulled out all the stops, and it felt like you were playing an adventure game of, like a Disney movie or like some other, you know, like DreamWorks movie or something. Like, it felt like that because it was so confident in its setting and its characters. It was just extremely, extremely impressive, and it just drew me right in the first time I played it. I really, really love Grim Fandango. It's so cool.
I've never played it.
Oh man, dang!
I know this is like one of my biggest gaming shames. This was before I liked like the adventure game, the more like straightforward narrative stuff. And I just never went back to it. I've played a handful of other like older, you know, like we talked about Secret of Monkey Island, like that kind of adventure game. I just never went to Grim Fandango, and I'm sad. I'm very sad that I just have never done it. I know how much everyone loves it, and that's why I'm sad that I haven't played it.
That is so depressing.
You're gonna get zero resistance from me into this game moving on, making the top 5 if you feel like it should, because I know that it's considered one of, if not the greatest adventure game of all time. So I'm not gonna argue against it in any capacity. It's just a bummer that I haven't played it.
Yeah. I mean, let's go ahead and move it up because we only have 2 up there right now.
Well, we're only a third through the list.
But also I want it up there.
And there are a couple of very big games coming up here.
Yeah, I do want to have, because I do think the comparison discussions are interesting. And I think Grim Fandango will lead to interesting comparative discussions when we get to the short list. Just because it's kind of the only one of its kind on the list. So I vote we keep it.
Yeah, I'm down.
Next up is Half-Life, the original Half-Life on Windows. Developed by Valve and published by Sierra Studios. A game rankings of 94.02. I did not play Half-Life when it came out. You know, again, we didn't have a gaming PC at this time. Most of these PC games we played at friends' houses or played later. Half-Life was one that I played later. I actually think I played the first Half-Life after I had played 2. I went back and played the first one. It is so singular. They're like the development they did with physics engines. Paved the way for like modern video game physics engines. It's really crazy the technological work that they did, and the open source nature of it as well, that like propelled the industry forward in that way, in some of these technical respects. The first Half-Life is a really important game. It has a lot of problems, like the ending kind of being tacked on. I've watched like numerous documentaries about the first Half-Life and the development of it, and how that alien level at the end was like super rushed because they felt like they needed something at the end, and it went through like a couple different iterations, but they didn't have time to like polish it the way they wanted to, and so it was actually like a lot shorter than they had it planned. And yeah, so it was like some issues there. Like they had a bit of feature creep, again, because so much of their attention and work was focused on the physics engine and a lot of the tech being thrown into it. And so I think it's really important as like a technical showcase. I don't know that I'm in love with it from like a story or world building standpoint. I think 2 does all of that stuff leagues and leagues better.
Okay.
But again, this is not a list comparing Half-Life and Half-Life 2. I don't have as much affinity for the first one as I do the second one, and that's why I don't know that I would, as important as this video game is, I don't know that I would push for it necessarily. What about you?
Yeah, I have not played the first. I love the second game, but
okay.
It's, again, we didn't have a PC. Once I played the second one, I was like, I don't really see why I would need to go back and play the first one, because the second game is so incredible. So yeah, I don't have a ton of things that I would say about it.
Okay, so salutes to Half-Life.
I think it's okay to let it go here.
Yeah.
In the wake of this next game, at least, which is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, this was an N64 game developed and published by Nintendo. Our highest game ranking score of 97.54.
I saw you clicking around in the dock while I was talking about Half-Life. Were you checking that, the highest?
I was. At least, the one on here.
Yeah.
I was trying to go back and look at some of our previous ones to see if it was the highest thus far in any year, and I didn't. I ran out of time trying to go through all our old docs. But 97.54 is extremely, extremely high.
It is.
for a game rankings aggregate score. Yeah, I don't know. Where do we start with Ocarina of Time? It's widely considered one of the greatest games of all time. Many people consider it the greatest game of all time, especially in a series that people think is one of the greatest series of all time. It's really good. It put Link in 3D. It felt like one of the most immersive gaming experiences I had ever had at the time. The graphics were incredible considering how big it felt. It has an amazing story. It has great combat and exploration and secrets and really cool puzzles, and all of the dungeons were super varied and interesting. I don't know. What do you say about it? Everything about it is really good.
I don't really care about Ocarina of Time.
Sigh.
I know. I will not fight you on moving this up, because it would be stupid not to move this up. But
I agree.
Wind Waker's kind of the only Zelda game I care about.
Look, I also love Wind Waker, and I also generally don't care that much about Zelda games. There are more Zelda games I don't like than there are games I do like.
Yeah.
But Ocarina of Time is a Zelda game that I do like, and I very much like it.
Yeah,
so
like
yes,
I'm not gonna fight you on it. That's for sure.
We should keep it.
We will. Let me type it. Legend of Zelda : Ocarina of Time, the.
I don't think Ocarina of Time, just to prepare the audience here, I don't think Ocarina of Time is going to win this list if Kyle does not care about it. So we will see when we get there, but I want to prepare the audience, because I feel that's the chalk answer. That's when we did whatever it was, 96, where it was like, yeah, Super Mario 64 came out that year. I wonder what game's gonna win. This is the game for 98. That's like, yeah, duh. There's no competition. But I
disagree heavily with the no competition part.
I also disagree heavily with it. Yeah. We will get there. But yes.
Yeah. And again, when I say I don't care about it, that doesn't mean I don't like it. It does not hold a special place in my heart, is what I mean by that. All right, next is Mega Man Legends, which does hold a special place in my heart. I fucking love this video game. This was for the PlayStation 1, developed by Capcom Production Studio 2, because I guess Studio 1 was busy, and published by Capcom, with the game rankings of 73.73, which is criminal. This video game is incredible. It has... So I was first introduced to the Mega Man IP at that same friend's house that we've talked about multiple times. I believe it was Mega Man 3 that I played. 2 or 3 that I played first. And I remember really liking the character design of Mega Man, but just not being super drawn into the side-scrolling gameplay. And then all of a sudden, this like super like cartoony, like full of personality, fun PS1 game comes out that's like expanding on the universe in fun ways. It feels like you're playing a Saturday morning cartoon because there's all these like crazy wacky characters and like all this like really funny dialogue and like goofy scenarios that they're getting into, and like you just get to inhabit. It fleshes out the world in a way that like some Mega Man games like take the world very seriously in like a weird way. This is like, it's all fun loving and cartoony, and it's just all about having a great time. It's got that like gameplay loop of going down into the dungeons and running those, and they're all like basically Zelda dungeons where there's puzzles and enemies to fight and stuff. And so it's hitting a lot of those notes as well, but it just has so much personality. It's so quirky and weird, and again, feels like you're playing a Saturday morning cartoon. I remember being immediately sucked into this. And
yeah, I don't think I've played this because it doesn't look familiar.
Right.
Just like the 3D look of it.
Yeah, it's a very like
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a very specific art style.
Yeah,
and I hadn't seen anything like that before. And now that's like one of my favorite art styles of all time. It's because of Mega Man Legends. So I'm sure if you listen to this podcast enough, you'll hear me say, "Hey, this is sort of Mega Man Legends like art style," because it lives rent free in my brain. So this one's super important to me. I know you haven't played it, so it's a harder sell.
It sounds like it's worth keeping for now.
Okay, thank God. All right, Mega Man.
It ain't gonna make it.
I know it's not.
You can keep it for now. If it's easier to cut it now or cut it later.
I know, because in the face of this next one, in terms of importance to me, even Mega Man Legends cannot stay. Because this next one is Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action on the PlayStation 1, developed by Konami Computer Entertainment Japan, published by Konami, with the game rankings of 95.61.
Too high.
There was never and has never been another game like that first Metal Gear Solid.
I agree.
I fucking love MGS4. 3 is incredible. 2 I have issues with, but still really like. That first Metal Gear Solid, like, what they do with the technology and the power of the PlayStation 1, or lack thereof, on the PlayStation 1 is so mind-boggling. Like, the cinematic camera angles, the voice acting, the scripting, the musical score, the various gameplay mechanics, you know, however you feel about how convoluted, you know, engaging with those mechanics was, like the options available for play, the just like the little undertones of wackiness present in all in every kind of nook and cranny of the game. That first Metal Gear Solid is my number one game of this year, personally, which is crazy because of the other games that are on this list that we haven't even talked about yet. But this is my number one game, for sure.
That doesn't surprise me at all. I like the first Metal Gear game. I think it's good. I think it has tons of really interesting ideas that it executes pretty well, given the time period in which it came out.
Right.
I have not enjoyed a Metal Gear game since the first one, and I guess I've not played any of MGS5, but I played the other 3, and there are elements that I really like and respect in all of them, but none of them have come together into being like an entire game experience that I would recommend, except for the first. So
Sure.
I'm totally with you. It's great. It should stay. I love to rib on Metal Gear
Yes.
because of how much you like it,
Yes.
and we're brothers. But I do think the first game is really good. It is not the best game that came out in 1998, but it should be on the short list.
All right, it's already there. It magically appeared while you were talking. I don't know how that happened.
Okay, next is NFL Blitz, PlayStation 1, developed by Midway Studios San Diego and published by Midway. This has a game rankings of 90.02, which is very interesting. Like, that's higher than I would have guessed.
That's really
for
high
a
for a
game like
sports
this.
game. Yeah.
But yeah, this game rules. It's the console version of the arcade game that it came out, I think, like a year or two prior to this. This is just like it. I was a Madden fan around this era also. Like Madden 99 came out this year, and that game is also really good. It's not, to me, it didn't make the honorable mentions because NFL Blitz is on this list, and I think that it's a more fun game overall. But I liked sports games in this era, and NFL Blitz is one of my favorites. So it was just an over-the-top version of what you would want from a football game. It was 7-on-7. There were no penalties, which is crazy. There were just like different rules set. But yeah, the whole point of it was not more violent in like an aggressive way, but it felt more violent because it felt more arcadey than the more traditional approach to something like Madden. But yeah, it's just it's a fun game to play with friends or by yourself. I did play a good amount at the arcades too before it came to PlayStation 1. Yeah, I don't think it's one of our top 5 games. It's a game that like I would love on my own top 5 as like a nod to the fun times, but I don't think it's one of the best games. I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. I do like that. Like we're getting to the point now in these in the kind of timeline of video games where like we've done the emulation of other things, right? Like you can play football, you can play baseball, and like, hey, it's cool that we have recreated this real world thing in video game format. But then like the natural evolution of, okay, now that we've done that, what's next? Well, in a video game, you don't have to follow all the same rules. So why don't we relax it a little bit in the name of just having a good time? And so I think like the spirit of NFL Blitz, I appreciate. Even as someone who doesn't like sports games, I'd still appreciate that.
Yeah. It's a good one. Okay, but we can cut it. Next on the list, Pokemon Red and Blue. This was on the Game Boy. Developed by Game Freak, published by Nintendo. The games have different game rankings for whatever reason. Red version is an 87.86. Blue version is an 88.33. So maybe people liked the exclusive Pokemon and Blue version better. I don't know. Yeah. If you go to ShayHatesEverything.com and you look at my top 100 game list, you'll see Pokemon Red and Blue on that list. Mm-hmm. And you won't just see it on that list. You'll see it at like number 3 on that list of the greatest games ever made.
Yeah.
So I like Pokemon Red and Blue. I am replaying Pokemon Fire Red right now. It's great.
Yes.
I like this
most
game.
Eminently replayable video games of all time.
No doubt. And infinitely playable. Just level up every Pokemon you have. Just grind it out.
Yeah.
It's fun as hell.
And like all those like
I'm doing that right now.
All like the ROM hacks of like the various versions and stuff that you can get and play on your computer and stuff.
You don't even need to do that.
I know. But
you
just
don't
like
need the fast forwarding and all that shit.
I know. Dude, I know.
We're talking about the original experience.
I'm saying that original experience is untouchably incredible, but also then it spawned it was so good that it spawned this whole like side-loading industry of people modding things and like, you know, expanding on that formula in fun, crazy ways. Like, fandoms don't generate that kind of content around shitty games. Like, it doesn't happen. So.
You're right. I think Pokemon Red and Blue should stay on this list.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Which version do you prefer?
Red, because it's my favorite color.
We eventually had both of them, but I think Red was the first one we had. I would also agree. Although, like, growing up, Blue was my favorite color,
right? But
I liked the exclusive Pokemon in Red version more.
Oh, okay.
Because it had Growlithe and Scyther,
yes,
and those were my boys. It also had Mankey, which was great.
Right.
Electabuzz was I didn't care so much because like I loved Magmar and he was a blue exclusive, and so that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah, Magmar being a blue exclusive was a shame because there are like criminally too few fire Pokemon in those first games, and so to have one be an exclusive to a version made me sad.
Well, Vulpix and Magmar were both in blue version, and then Growlithe was in red version.
That's what it was. Yeah.
It's not ideal because you're right, not enough fire types.
Yeah.
But blue version also had Sandslash, and Sandslash is a very good
Sandslash. I remember we had those little like vinyl figurines of Pokemon. The Sandslash one was cool as shit.
So dope.
So was the Raichu one.
I missed those toys so much.
The Raichu one,
they were all awesome.
Yeah.
The Golduck one was awesome.
Yes.
Pokemon rules,
dude. I want those
Pokemon's
vinyl figurines.
good.
I bet. How much are this? All right. Original Pokemon.
You've been selling a bunch of your old stuff. You've been selling
figurines.
your Funko Pops and some old books.
Look, we'll get into that on the main pod. All right. Oh yeah, dude. eBay's got him, bro.
Do you think those are in a tub somewhere? Probably not. I'm sure we had gotten rid of them.
I believe we have since gotten rid of them. There is a lot assortment of 84 of those figures for $500 or best offer.
I will buy.
84 figures? Oh, dude, they look so good.
They're awesome.
Oh, they have Raichu. They have Golduck. All right, who's another? They have 2 Hitmonchans, question mark. They have the
Hitmonchan
Mew,
was a
which
good
is
one.
Great. Yeah, Hitmon. See, they have some of the Gen 2 ones too. Like they have Bellossom.
Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah, there's like a couple.
I mean, look, I love
them.
Hey, we're going to talk about Gold and Silver version in a couple of episodes when we get to it. But yeah, this is OG, baby.
Yeah, there are only a couple of Gen 2 Pokemon in here. They do have some duplicates, though. There's like 3 Blastoise and stuff as part of this.
Get out of here. That's a ripoff.
Yeah. Oh, the Golem one? Remember our Golem one lost his arm?
Hell yeah.
Oh, yes. So sad he was missing an arm. Anyways.
Who was your go-to starter? Do you have a preference?
Charmander.
Just because he was the fire type?
Yeah, well, I fucking love Charizard, dude.
Yeah.
Like he's such
Charizard,
in the show he's such an asshole.
Yes.
I love him. Because like you're always
dragon.
Charizard is us as the viewer because everyone always like Ash sucks. He's a terrible trainer. And so to have a Pokemon that actually treats him like the idiot he is like very vindicating. Dude, Pokemon is so good.
Squirtle is no slouch though, because Blastoise is great.
Oh, totally.
Wartortle's got a really cool design.
Squirtle Squad, baby.
And also, like in the show, the Squirtle Squad was amazing. I feel sad for Bulbasaur because he was very cool, but like Ivysaur and Venusaur are lame.
Yeah, but Bulbasaur has that beautiful episode
useless.
where like he meets the other Bulbasaurs and the Ivysaur, and they're like spraying their like little flower jizz everywhere, and it's like a very sweet moment.
Bulbasaur's great.
And
that's what I'm
Ash
saying.
leaves Bulbasaur with that the lady who runs like the nursery or whatever, the like flower nursery. He leaves Bulbasaur. It's fucked up, man.
Spoiled brat, man.
I mean,
he didn't know what he had.
It's for the best. I mean, that's to Bulbasaur's benefit, but still.
True. Yeah.
Anyways,
Pokemon Red and Blue are awesome.
Yeah, stay tuned for our Pokemon podcast coming soon. The next up on the list, just because we simply must move on, Resident Evil 2, the second one. on PlayStation 1, developed by Capcom, published by them with a game rankings of 94.44. I love that first Resident Evil. However, Resident Evil 2 kicks ass, man. Like, having the run of the city, like, also, there's something even more unbelievable about the fact that all of these these environmental puzzles are taking place within a police station. Like, the fact that it's like, the first one, it's this crazy dude who built this mansion because he's eccentric or whatever. The other one is like, I gotta find these medallions to put in this statue in this police station. It's like so weird and crazy. But just like the idea of like the setting expanding to be, it's this whole town, this whole like Roanoke has been taken over by these zombies. You get to feel it really feels like the whole town has been taken over, and like you're like running for your life through the streets and like bouncing from shop to shop before you get to the PD. Resident Evil 2 is really, really rad. I think elevates their formula over the first one in pretty much every way. It's for me, the setting of the first one is more memorable, but the specific beats of the second one are more memorable than the specific beats of the first one. Like the first one, I remember the Jill sandwich elevator thing, the dogs, of course, the breaking glass in the hallway, like some of those jump scare moments. But the second one is just like full of banger after banger after banger moment of like iconic Resident Evil lore. And it's the first time you play as Leon, who is my boy.
Sure.
Leon S. Kennedy, the savior of the nation. Resident Evil 2 is really good, man. I don't want to cut these games, bro. Oh, this is hard.
We can keep RE2. It has the disadvantage of me being 50% of this podcast and just like not being into Resident Evil games.
You should leave, is what I think I'm discovering.
Look, it's good. It's good. It's a good video game. I just don't care about it. You were just talking about fucking Ocarina of Time. Are you really going to tell me that you think RE2 is better than Ocarina of Time?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
Get out. Dude.
Oh yeah.
Get out.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely not.
Well, we'll hash that out because Resident Evil 2 is sticking around.
We won't hash it out because it's going to be a very easy decision between those two games.
All right, this next one we can cut. And
yes, I agree.
Even though we both love this video game, and that is Rugrats: The Search for Reptar on the PlayStation 1, developed by In Space, not to be confused with InSync, published by THQ, has a game rankings of 68.75. It's a baby game full of babies for babies, but it's lovely. Yes. It's full of all of like your favorite moments from the show. The goose. It's got the goose. It's got that creepy robot toy in it.
Oh man, yeah.
It like you're collecting Reptar puzzle pieces. It has those mini golf levels that are like actually not that bad. Question mark?
Well, they were hard compared to the rest of the game because it's mostly like really easy collectathon mini game stuff. Yeah, but yeah,
there's that level in the supermarket. Oh. Mm-hmm. Man, that game rules.
The levels were fun. Like it was really fun to explore and see all the like wacky stuff because it was like the show. It made you think of like your favorite episodes from the show.
Totally. And like when you look at the Bluey game that came out recently, that you were just like deriding for how like terrible and shitty it is and low effort. Like Rugrats Search for Reptar, like they're doing stuff, and they're making good. Like they understand what kids want out of it, and they give that to the kids. It's great.
Yes.
But yeah, it's obviously not going to beat out these like mountain moving video games that we've put on the short list so far. But Rugrats Search for Reptar is a real banger.
I can't believe we missed putting Bluey on the 2023 games that site.
You're right. We fucked up.
That game. Fuck that game. That game makes me angry. A game that does not make me angry is Spyro the Dragon for PlayStation 1, developed by Insomniac, published by Sony Computer Entertainment. Game rankings of 85.44. Hey, it's another mascot platformer. This was the era of mascot platformers. Spyro is one of the great ones.
Yes.
I think the place where it falls down compared to a game like Banjo-Kazooie is how easy it is.
Totally. Yeah, I just finished replaying this and the Reignited trilogy. It is super easy. Like, not as easy as Croc, not as baby as Croc, but like definitely does not have as much going on. Those flight levels are cool. There's like one per world. Those are cool and kind of switch it up, but the actual levels themselves are super, super easy.
Yeah, and I mean, we're comparing it to Gex, Banjo-Kazooie,
right?
Even in other years, like we talked about, Blasto also came out this year,
right?
Which did not make it onto our games that don't suck because it was a nominee for games that suck for several reasons. But like, there's just not a lot going on in Spyro. That said, it's extremely fun.
Yeah.
Spyro's a great character. It was very fun collecting and saving the dragons.
Right.
I missed not being able to do that in the two sequels because I found that to be more fun than the story that was happening in the other two games personally. But taking on its own merits, I do think it's one of the great 3D platformers. We've already cut Gex. We've already cut Crash Warped. I think we keep Spyro for now. I think it's going to be a tough comparison between Banjo.
It is.
Would you would take Banjo over Spyro?
I would. Yeah. Even having just played it, even with the recency bias.
Okay. Then we should cut it.
Okay.
Because I would take Spyro over Banjo, mostly just because it's a personal preference. I do think Banjo's a better game, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, again, also personal preference, Spyro, just for the nostalgia of like we owned it and played it a lot. But I do think Banjo is the better game. But again, harder because would have to go to friends' houses to play it. But yeah, I do think Banjo's better.
Yeah. All right, next, Star Wars Rogue Squadron for the N64, developed by Factor 5 and LucasArts, and published by LucasArts. Game rankings of 84.76. This game is like the aerial combat game that all other aerial combat games are compared to.
Yeah, they wish they were Rogue Squadron, man.
Yeah. The Star Wars X-Wing game, because we talked about this, because there have been so many. Like, there was, I think it was just X-Wing, and then there was X-Wing versus TIE Fighters. Both of them, I think, are good, if my memory is differentiated between the two of them. But I like Rogue Squadron more because it's more arcadey, it's more fast-paced.
Correct.
There are different mission types.
And they're, like, good set pieces from the movies and stuff in there, too. Like the specific missions and all that.
Well, and like, the locations and stuff are super memorable. Yeah, I really, really like Rogue Squadron.
I like also all of those Rogue Squadron. I think there's 3 of them, right? I like all of them.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I have a special, like, proclivity for it right now because I'm reading the original Rogue Squadron novels that came out around the same time. And so I, like, have an extra affinity for just the Rogue Squadron in and of itself. But, yeah, now that we're talking about it, like, I like this game more.
I like Rogue Squadron a lot.
Yeah, because it's got a lot of awesome characters. Crix McBean is in this, is one of, like, the main, handlers that, like, gives you missions and stuff. Obviously, Wedge, who's, like, one of the great Star Wars characters.
I remember it being pretty short, like, not a lot of levels. Like, not as bad as Star Fox, but, like, being pretty short. But I'm also having a hard time remembering, like, what was the first one, what was the second one, which levels fall in there.
I'm on the Wikipedia page. So there's 16 levels.
Oh, okay.
I know it had Beggar's Canyon. It had the Trench Run. It had Hoth.
Okay, it did have. Okay.
Yep.
I think Hoth was in like all of them.
Well, yeah, the Hoth level was in one of the previous games. That's one of the reasons they made Rogue Squadron is because that Hoth level was more arcadey in that Star Wars X-Wing game.
I see.
But yeah. Yeah, the only trouble I'm having with it is, again, comparing it to the other Rogue Squadron games. Like, I don't know how it stacks up against those because they're all the same in my mind.
Yeah, it's the Twisted Metal problem.
Yep. Well, except you'll notice we're not talking about Twisted Metal 3 here because that game, it's fine, but like it's not. Twisted Metal 1 and 2 are way, way better.
Yeah, it doesn't warrant discussion, not with all these incredible games. God, what do we do with it though? I will say we both really like Rogue Squadron.
We should keep it.
Yeah, okay.
We should keep it. Because we're getting down to it here. I don't think we got a whole lot of other games that I think are going to make it to the short list here.
Yeah, I agree. The next one is Tactics Ogre on the original PlayStation. That was developed by Quest Corporation, published by Atlas USA. Game rankings of 88.41. This is like Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics. This is like dog people and cat people. Like you're kind of some people are both, but a lot of people are one or the other. And I am actually both, but I do definitely have a heavy preference for Final Fantasy Tactics. I think Tactics Ogre is really good. It's just there's something about the secret sauce of Final Fantasy Tactics that is better. I have a hard time pinpointing it because they are very similar from a mechanics standpoint. I think part of it probably comes down to art and music. I think the art and music in Final Fantasy Tactics are better than Tactics Ogre. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I fall down on it. Did you ever play this?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. Yeah, I don't know, like, beyond... I can mirror a lot of what I said about Final Fantasy Tactics with Tactics Ogre, but, like, ratchet it down from an 11 to, like, an 8.
Okay.
And so that's why I don't think it should move on. But worth talking about, because I do, like, there's something about... There's something about Tactics Ogre that just didn't stick with me as much. And I think, like, the art is a little bit more, like, Tactics Advanced, I think. Yeah. Yeah, it just didn't click with me in the same way. Like something about the UI, some of the, like, the feedback that you would get on the moves you were going to make wasn't as clear.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit, in my experience, a little bit lesser of an experience compared to Final Fantasy. So,
yeah, and I mean, those tactics games not being my favorite type of genre, and Final Fantasy Tactics being sort of like the heralded one, I think it's hard to compare those, you know?
Right, yeah, for sure. Next is Time Crisis 2. This released in the arcade. This is my light gun game. This is developed by Namco and published by them with the game rankings of 79.68. This is the one that I always played. I brought up again. This is the Kyle light gun game Power Hour here. Power Minute. I fucking love Time Crisis. And the second one is the best one. I will take no arguments or refutations from the audience. I don't know if refutation is a word, but it sounded fancy, so I said it. Time Crisis 2 is the best one. In a year where there are worse games, I would fight for Time Crisis 2. This year has Pokemon and Metal Gear Solid and Ocarina of Time and Rogue Squadron, and I'm sorry, Time Crisis, I love you dearly with all my heart, but also get the fuck out of here, Time Crisis 2. What are you doing on this list, man? You're crazy coming up in here. So we do not need to carry Time Crisis forward. Similarly with the next one, I wanted to talk about this one. It's Tomba, ! On the PlayStation 1. developed by Whoopee Camp, which is a great name for a game studio. Published by SCE, game rankings of 83.56. I've talked about this before. My experience with Tomba is playing that PlayStation Underground demo disc over and over and over and over again because I was just immediately drawn to the character, the music, the like graphical tone, the cool little pig enemies that you were fighting. You're like a little troll Tarzan running around with pink hair, looking awesome, jumping from tree to tree. Tomba is super cool. There is that remaster coming out sometime soon.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to talk about it here, but I want to reserve my judgment on Tomba until I've had a chance to like actually play it when that remaster comes out. And so
we're not going to be able to go back in time,
correct,
and talk about Tomba on this podcast.
How, like, looking at the games that Tomba would be up against, I'm comfortable not moving it forward and just covering my thoughts on it on the main pod at a later time. You know,
Agreed.
Maybe Tomba, the remaster, will be on Games That Don't Suck of 2024. If it's possible. I think it comes out this year. Yeah, it does. It's possible. Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
But yeah, Tomba, kiss on the forehead, tuck you into bed. I'm packing my bags and leaving before you wake up.
All right, 2 more games to go. One, I don't think this is gonna make it unless you feel like it should. It's Vigilante 8, PlayStation 1 and N64. This was developed by Luxoflux and published by Activision.
Cyberdeck.
Yeah. Game rankings of 85.73. So this was a Twisted Metal competitor that came out at the perfect time. At the time, I really liked Twisted Metal 3 because I was a child. I was 10 years old when I was playing these video games. I do think Vigilante 8 is better than Twisted Metal 3 or Twisted Metal 4, if we're being real. But yeah, part of what made it fun is it was different. It had different characters, but it was very similar to how Twisted Metal operated. All the characters had their own storylines and like unique endings. It was a car combat game. It was set in like weird, wacky locales. I don't think mechanics wise it was as strong as like Twisted Metal 1 and 2, but it did have more variety than either of those games because, you know, it was newer and had more going on and more options.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really liked it. Vigilante 8. It is fun to look back on a game like this because it felt like such a knockoff at the time. But like, no, people also really liked this game.
Yeah.
Like it felt like a game that I liked, that like other people would be like, oh, Walmart version of Twisted Metal.
Yeah, we have
but
Twisted
like, no,
Metal at home.
It's good.
Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, it's good.
The first one is good. I think the second one is actually really good. I think the first one
was that?
Vigilante 8 Second Offense.
Yeah.
That's the one that I spent the most time playing. Second Offense. So I don't have a lot of memory of this first one playing it. So it's a little bit harder for me to weigh in on it.
Well, maybe we'll talk about Second Offense on the 99 episode.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's good. It doesn't need to continue.
Right. And our last game on the long list, thanks to folks for sticking around this whole time, is Yoshi's Story on the N64, developed and published by Nintendo with a game rankings of 59.91. People did not like this game very much. It got the same rap as Yoshi's Island. Like it's too kiddie. It's like Mario Light kind of thing. But for me, my age at that time, it was right up my alley. I again, like Yoshi as a character, I've always had much more affinity for than Mario. And so, and basically any excuse to play Yoshi, I would kind of jump on, pun intended. Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot of like additional things to say about it that I haven't already said about Yoshi's Island because it's a very similar experience. I think it has a little bit more going on than Yoshi's Island.
No, I think it has less.
Or yeah, it's the other way
Yoshi's
around.
Island.
It's the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like Yoshi's Island. I did not care for Yoshi's Story. It felt too easy, too short, And it was it felt like a stripped down version of an already fairly easy game. I just didn't get anything out of it personally.
Yeah, I liked the it's not a frame story, but kind of is. But like the fact that it's in like a pop-up book and like the presentation was very cute and fun. And like the like platforms were like little that you could see like the corrugated cardboard inside the platforms and stuff. Like I liked the art a lot. It was very fun and again childish, but yeah, it definitely did not have as much going on as even Yoshi's Island. So I understand why people didn't like it as much. I still really liked it, but I'm not gonna push for it to stick around.
I would agree with that. And that'll get us out. That'll get us down to our short list of 9 games.
That's pretty good.
9 games. We did a good job. 23-9. This feels much more manageable than it would.
This is like the kind of thing we should be doing every time.
Well, but we normally only have like 15, 16
yeah,
games.
I know. All
but
right.
yeah, like because like what we cut Crash, we cut Gran Turismo, Half-Life, Spyro. Like all those games theoretically deserved to be in the short list because they are a step above some of the other ones that we already cut.
Right.
But none of those are making the top 5 based upon what's left. So we did the right thing.
We did.
You want to read us down the short list?
Here's the short list as we have it right now. That is Banjo-Kazooie, Final Fantasy Tactics, Grim Fandango, Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, the Mega Man Legends, Metal Gear Solid Tactical Espionage Action, Pokemon Red and Blue versions, Resident Evil 2, and Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
I'm going to make the number 1 and 2 spots really easy. Number 1 is Pokemon Red. Number 2 is Pokemon Blue. And then whatever the other ones
No. Those are combined.
I know. I'm joking. I have highlighted Pokemon Red and Blue.
We are cheating by combining them, but I don't care.
We're not cheating.
A little. It's like a little bit of cheating.
No, dude. They're the same game. It would be cheating to not make them the same.
Yeah, that's fair.
Pokemon Red and Blue is going to be in our top 5.
Yeah.
I have highlighted it. And I feel like that's the end of that. Because I would have said Ocarina is a guarantee, but given where you are and given the rest of this list, I can't confidently say. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer. Ocarina should be in the top 5.
Of the 9 games on here, Ocarina is the 9th game for me.
Oh, Lord, dude.
Well, no, again, like, just in terms of, like, my affinity for these games, like, do I think they're better? Like, this is the hard conversation, right? Like, this is our list. It's not games that are objectively better. It's games that we think don't suck the most.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to play Ocarina of Time. I didn't really want to play it when it came out. I was happy to watch my friends play it.
Here's where this list gets hard. Is a large percentage of these games are games that I have zero affinity for. Like Grim Fandango, I support because I know it's great. Final Fantasy Tactics, I support because I know it's great. But a game like Mega Man Legends, like, that's hard.
Right.
Because I have not played it, and it's not in that kind of category.
Why don't you tell me what your 5 are in no particular order?
Oh, that's tough. Okay. So Pokemon, Zelda, Banjo, Metal Gear. And then I have no idea for the 5th one.
Not Star Wars?
Let's talk about Star Wars. So okay. I was in the background just doing some comparing and contrasting in the series just so that we don't make the mistake we did with Twisted Metal, which is like misrepresent.
Right.
So the original Rogue Squadron was all level based, like in atmosphere levels.
Yes.
All 16 levels. So like no space battles.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
The second game, which was Rogue Leader, introduced space battles. And then the third game, Rebel Strike,
introduced ground levels.
Some like ground stuff and also some on-foot stuff,
like
which I definitely did not enjoy.
On-foot stuff.
Yes, that I did not like. I do not think the third game is amazing. I do think the second game is better than the first game. I just think it has more going on. So take that for what you will. That doesn't mean that we should necessarily cut the first one, but I do think the second game is the better game. Because here's what's tough. Like, I'm just going down this list. Banjo-Kazooie, I think should make the list. And Metal Gear, I think should make the list. Both of those games are not games that I have a ton of passion for, but I think they should make the list. Ocarina is the only game on this list, other than Pokemon, which has already been locked. Ocarina is the only game that I have a ton of passion for. So that's where it gets hard. Because Final Fantasy Tactics, Mega Man Legends, Resident Evil 2, none of those games I care about.
Right.
I mean, Tactics I do care about, but not compared to the others. So if we cut, I guess all of this to say, if we cut Rogue Squadron, there's one other game that I love besides Pokemon on that long list.
So where did we go wrong, right? Like what, because there are other games on the bigger list that you have an affinity for, or no?
I mean, no, there are games that, yes, but not games that, like, I think are, like, they're not games that, compared to some of these others, I would say are better than, right? Crash and Spyro are probably the two biggest ones.
Yeah.
And like I wouldn't cut any game on this list for Crash or Spyro necessarily, because I know how passionate you are about a game like RE2, Grim Fandango, etc., etc.
Yeah.
What I'm unwilling to have happen is have it be Pokemon and 4 games that Kyle likes.
Right. I don't think that's fair. I'm not saying Ocarina can't be in the top 5.
It wouldn't matter if it was fair. I still wouldn't fucking let it happen. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting my foot down on that shit. But what I think we should do, we should lock Metal Gear. Metal Gear should be on this list.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
Because it's a game that you love that I also think is good.
Okay.
Because a game like Mega Man Legends, RE2, both that you love. Mega Man Legends, I just have never played.
Right.
I don't really care about a Mega Man game. RE2, again, like, I think it's good, but I don't care. I don't really care for that series. Those are like tougher sells for me.
And so similarly, on the opposite side, we should do Ocarina then. Lock Ocarina, because you care a lot about that one, and I at least acknowledge that it is good.
Sure.
Like obviously it is a very good game. It just does not resonate with me the way it does a lot of 99% of other humans on the planet apparently.
It would be insane to not put Ocarina of Time on this list. Because you felt similarly about Super Mario 64, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm not,
Yeah, you're just not a big Mario fan.
Yeah, I like Yoshi.
That isn't to say Ocarina should win. I just mean I believe it would be crazy to have a top 5 list and not include Ocarina of Time.
And like the qualifier to that sentence that I would add is because you really like Ocarina of Time.
Yes.
I don't give a shit what other people would say. Like, oh, that's crazy. I don't care. But since you really like it, it would be crazy not to have it on there.
Yeah. I guess it doesn't matter, because I'm adding some like objectivity to a place where there is no objectivity.
Right.
But to me, like, Ocarina of Time is objectively a great video game. Like, but that is also dumb, because no, it's not objectively, because none of this is objective.
It is objectively an important video game.
Sure. Which I also don't really give that much of a shit about, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, that's fair. We do talk about that a lot when we go through these games.
We do.
But yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I want games that I like, not that mattered to the industry. We cut Half-Life already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got 2 spots.
Uh-huh.
I don't think Mega Man Legends is going to make it. Like, of the 5 games that I don't care as much about, that would definitely be the bottom of that list.
Yeah, I think I agree. Which makes me super sad, but I get it, and I agree. I'm okay with that. So that's in red. Mega Man's in red. So
what would be the 4? So I'm gonna put Rogue Squadron aside for right now, because I feel like that's a game that, like, if it made it, would probably be a number 5 as a representative of we both really like it. Mm-hmm. With the remaining 4 games being Banjo, Final Fantasy Tactics, Grim Fandango, RE2, how would you order those games?
A very close tie between RE2 and Final Fantasy Tactics.
So which one would you put at the top? Because we're not doing ties. That's not the point.
Pokemon Red and Blue are tied. Oh, God. I think Final Fantasy Tactics.
At the top?
Yeah. In my heart of hearts.
Okay. And then RE2?
And then RE2. And then Banjo. And then Grim. Yeah.
Then we should cut Grim Fandango. By that logic.
Yeah.
Because, like, I would put Banjo at the top because I did play a lot of it and really liked it. And then Tactics, I would put, having never played Grim Fandango, I would still put it above RE2, but that's kind of a dumb argument. So we should cut Grim Fandango.
Okay. So then, are the other 2 Banjo and Tactics then? Because Banjo is kind of the thing that we agree on that is high on my list. Although, because you told me to put Rogue Squadron to the side, I would put Rogue Squadron over Banjo.
Okay.
So here's, for the folks listening, what we have left. We have locked Ocarina, Metal Gear, and Pokemon. And what we have left for the 2 slots are Banjo, Final Fantasy Tactics, RE2, and Rogue Squadron. I would order it Tactics, Resident Evil, Rogue Squadron, Banjo. So would you rather have Banjo or Rogue Squadron? Because those are the 2 remaining that you.
That's hard. Because, like, I guess I would pick level. Rogue Squadron, but I feel like Banjo's a better game. And with how many great mascot platformers were in this year, to have none of them make the list feels bad.
Yeah.
So I think I would pick Banjo over Rogue Squadron.
For the health of the list.
Yeah, but, like, I would pick Tactics over RE2 because I think that like, I like what that game's doing. So would I, more.
Right? So
wait, no. Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, so you did put Tactics at the top.
If you don't care about RE2, let's go ahead and highlight that in red. Let's take that one out of the running then, because
you're good with that. That surprises me.
Well, because we're not.
I expected a bigger fight.
You and I aren't even talking about that right now, and it's like the more interesting conversation is between Banjo, Tactics, and Rogue Squadron. 2 of those 3. Yeah. It hurts me to get rid of RE2, but also I want this list to be representative of both of us in games that we both like, and if you're not into RE2, then I think that's kind of damning. Like, there are only so many of those games, the one-sided games that we can have on here for a list that we both are creating together. And I made my choice, right, of Final Fantasy over that. So
yeah, that's true.
That's why I think.
And you really like Banjo, so it's not like
right.
It's not like the game that's taken its spot is a game you don't like.
Right.
Yeah,
I really like. I mean, obviously, right. We talked about all of these games are fantastic. I really like Banjo, Tactics, and Rogue Squadron. I really like all 3 of those video games. Tactics is my favorite of the 3.
I think we should cut Rogue Squadron then. Because of the original 5 games that I didn't have an affinity for, Tactics was at the top of your list. So that feels, and I still like it. Like, that feels like a good game.
Okay.
and I think Banjo's better than Rogue Squadron. So and also just I feel like that's a good list. We've got a mascot platformer on there that is the best one of all the mascot platformers we talked about. I feel like that's a really good list. Rogue Squadron is awesome. And maybe Rogue Leader will make it.
Yeah, I have this contrarian nature where it's like, this is a list anybody can make, you know?
You don't want good games on the list?
Like the Rogue Squadron being on there is the us flavor. It's the Shea and Kyle flavor, you know?
Yeah.
That's the only.
So what you would cut Banjo and put Rogue Squadron on?
I would, yeah, but
fuck it, do it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it does suck to not have the mascot platform on there.
Yeah,
it does. It feels bad. So what feels worse? The fact that this list could be made by fucking whoever, anybody, or not having a mascot platformer in contention.
Yeah, like I don't want to make the list contrarian on purpose.
No,
I do hear what you're saying.
Like when I look at that list, I don't see us as an identity in it, and I feel like having Rogue Squadron on there would make it feel like a list you and I made.
I think when this list is ordered, you will feel represented by the game that's at the top. Because I don't think that game that is going to be at the top would be a game everybody would put at the top.
So, no Rogue Squadron? Is that still the way you're leaning?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, this is a bummer.
I think the hardest thing for me to let go of is just how many great platformers came out this year and none of them made it. That just feels bad.
Yeah.
Banjo, Crash, Gex,
Spyro,
like those are all really great games and none of them make it. And we also love those platforms.
Yeah.
Because I would cut Tactics and keep Rogue Squadron and Banjo. But I'm not really going to fight for that because I know Tactics was at the top for you.
Yeah.
So like I'm okay with that, but that's what I would do.
Right. We can't talk in circles about this forever.
True.
Well, we can, but we shouldn't.
Eventually it will stop being good audio.
Right. I think we're almost there.
I think Banjo is a better video game than Rogue Squadron. I'm also okay if we like Rogue Squadron and the memories of that more.
I think I do, because we, like... Because it's in that same... again, this is hard because it's an N64 game, right? Like, we played it at friends' houses. Same with Banjo.
Yeah.
And yet, like, just the Star Wars IP and like the books of the time tying in.
I'm cheating a little bit.
Okay.
Because I'm like, so what about Rogue Leader in 2001? Like, is that game gonna make? Because I think that game is better than Rogue Squadron. Is that game gonna make it? Just really quickly, I'm looking at the 2001 list.
I feel like 2001's got a lot going.
Super Smash Brothers Melee, Halo,
Oh,
MGS2,
2001 is Halo.
Eco, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3.
Oh, that's the best
GTA
one.
3, Twisted Metal Black, Gran Turismo 3.
Oh, no.
Pikmin.
Oh, no. Star Wars, no. Shit. I don't like doing that.
SSX Tricky.
I don't like doing that.
Final Fantasy 10.
Oh my god. Shay,
Rogue Leader ain't gonna make
you
it.
need to. I don't like doing that though.
Neither do I. I'm not saying we should keep that in mind, but I couldn't help myself because it would make me feel better cutting Rogue Squadron if I thought Rogue Leader. Not to say like we're only going to cut Rogue Squadron if Rogue Leader makes it. Like if we commit to that. I'm not saying that, but it would make me feel better about cutting it if I thought, yeah, and like
it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Shit. So here's an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. We keep trying to keep Banjo-Kazooie on here because of the character platforms it represents.
Okay.
And we both like Banjo. I think we might have more. Actually, we are more sad that Crash, Spyro, or Gex are not represented than Banjo not being represented. You know what I mean?
I think you're right. And if we're talking about the Shea and Kyle flavor, Spyro should be our 5th game.
Yes. A last minute
so we fucked up.
We fucked up.
We cut too many games.
We did.
We were so proud of ourselves.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have cut it.
Yeah.
If memory serves, I didn't want to cut it. You thought we should cut it.
No, your reasoning was like Spyro is
I don't need to go back and
one.
listen.
Like it is easy.
My memory.
Oh, shut the fuck
My memory is
up.
true. If you go back and listen to it and that isn't what happened,
God.
it's a lie. I'm just gonna gaslight my way through it.
Oh my god.
But yeah, Spyro should be the 5th game.
Okay.
And it should be at number 5.
Yeah. All right. So, we have whittled the short list down. Yeah, because see, now that Spyro's on there, I don't feel so bad about Star Wars.
Agreed.
Interesting how that works. Brains are crazy. All right.
That's what's fun about
the 5 games that don't suck, not in order, are Final Fantasy Tactics, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, Pokemon Red and Blue, and Spyro the Dragon. Spyro the Dragon is locked at number 5.
Yes.
So the discussion here is 1 through 4.
I think Tactics should go at 4.
I agree.
Because to me, I think the 2 and the 3 spot is the real discussion.
Yes. Well,
do we want to spoil the number 1 spot?
Actually, no, I don't. I don't know what the number 1 spot is. Unless you're acceding to it.
I'm not acceding. You're not going to win a fight. Pokemon is number 1. If you're going to try to tell me that Metal Gear is number 1, you're going to lose. Pokemon is number 1. There's no way that Pokemon isn't our favorite game.
I know, you're right. You're right.
There is no way.
You're right.
There's no way.
You're right. You're right.
That's why I was saying, like, do we want to go at... Because I feel like we do that a lot. There's like, well, it's obvious which one the top one is. And look, MGS might be your number 1. I 100% understand that.
But even that, I'm not 100% sure on. I'm not 100% on it. I love that game so much. But Pokemon has brought me so much joy throughout all of time.
Yeah. You mean even for your personal list, Pokemon might have been number 1?
Yes.
Yeah. Technically, on ShadesEverything.com and my game of the year for 1998, I gave it to Ocarina of Time.
Interesting.
I should change
You
that.
should. That's
Red and Blue. And ironically, in that top 3, because again, that original purpose of those lists was also to include the importance of the games that we talked about, or that I was writing about.
Yeah, so that's different than what we're doing here.
Ocarina of Time. Yes, Ocarina of Time was number 1, and then the nominees, or like the runners up, were Pokemon Red and Blue and Banjo.
Oh, okay.
The 2 runners up.
All right.
But yeah, Pokemon is number 1. I think it's just a discussion between MGS and Ocarina of Time.
For 2 and 3.
I very strongly believe that Ocarina of Time is better. I think it's hard for you and I, when I love Ocarina of Time, and you don't care about it, and you love MGS probably more than I love Ocarina of Time, and I also do like MGS. I just don't want a Metal Gear game to be at number 2.
Look, this is not a victory for
bullshit.
Kojima. This is not a victory for Kojima, because I know you don't like Kojima.
Isn't it? I do not.
It's a victory for me.
It is a victory for him.
And you do like me.
But I don't like you either.
Oh, no. The truth comes out.
I can be okay with that.
I mean,
Partially,
it's just, they are both, I'm not going to talk about in terms of importance to games, because we just said that's not what we're doing. Metal Gear Solid is so important to me because of how it elevates the medium of games and doing it initially by emulating film. And if Kojima had not been such a cinephile, the first Metal Gear game would not have had anywhere near the magic that it does for me. And I think a lot of it comes down to these feelings of, I cannot believe this is what video games are capable of right now. Because like I play Metal Gear Solid, and then I play Off-World Interceptor Extreme, and I'm like, these people just shat on a computer keyboard and the game farted out onto a floppy. Like, and then there's this like team of people over here making Metal Gear Solid, which is like, in my brain at the time, the highest form of art, right? Which, like, I was a child, but just incredible fucking stuff. And then, you know, Ocarina of Time, obviously, other people feel that level of importance for Ocarina of Time that I feel for Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah.
And I do not begrudge them that. But in this instance, when they are literally going head-to-head on this list, I'm Metal Gear Solid all the way, baby.
I can live with that.
Hell yeah.
The irony is that in my top 100 games of all time, which please go to shades.everything.com and read, I just rewrote like the entire thing a couple of weeks ago, and it's, hey, guess what? Writing about 100 games is a lot of words. On that list, Ocarina of Time. Metal Gear Solid is not on that list. Ocarina of Time is number 16. The irony is number 15, Final Fantasy VII, our 1997 winner.
Yeah.
And at number 14, Super Mario 64, our 1996 winner. I did not do that on purpose. I'm just now
That's
realizing that it went 1998, 1997, 1996 as we go up the list. But that would have been, obviously, I wouldn't have argued that Ocarina of Time should win over Pokemon, but that would have been fun.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, Metal Gear Solid can be number 2. It's fine. Just gotta give you what you want every once in a while.
I won't make you type it. As a courtesy. You can type in Ocarina of Time, though.
And I'm not going to put comma the at the end because that shit is dumb.
Well, it was just for alphabetical sake.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's dumb. The first word of the title is the word the. It should start with a T. I don't need this Boolean, whatever that's called. Is that no, it's not Boolean. What's the thing called? Like the library
The Dewey
thing
Decimal System?
Dewey Decimal System. Isn't that where that originated?
Oh, I don't know, actually. Stay tuned for our podcast on etymology of the Dewey Decimal System.
The end of titles. No, we're doing this right now.
Oh, we're doing it live.
It says why. It's conveniently indexing titles. It says it's more efficient if you're looking for Legend of Zelda, The Legend of Zelda, to look for L than to look for T, which I disagree with.
No, I agree,
whatever.
Because if you're going, like, if you're looking at a catalog of things, a lot of things start with
there
the
would
word
be a million
the.
things with
yeah,
the.
and then it would
I
not
understand.
be helpful.
Understanding is not agreeing. It's stupid.
Okay. Well, What is also stupid is this podcast. And the 1998 games that suck are, in the number 5 slot, Spyro the Dragon. Number 4, Final Fantasy Tactics. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Number 2, Metal Gear Solid. And number 1, Pokemon Red and Blue versions. That's everybody. Everybody give these video games a hand. Nice job.
Yeah.
Good job being made in the past, in 1998, and not any other year in the United States exclusively.
This is a good list of good video games.
Yeah, holy crap, man.
And I kind of ended up not being right in saying that it was going to feel kind of top heavy, because I wasn't expecting you to be so like tepid on Ocarina. I thought Pokemon and Ocarina were going to like run away and it wasn't going to be close.
I like to keep you guessing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised that you pushed for Metal Gear, but yeah.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Yeah, and it's exactly like the episode where it's just a carton of milk. That's all you got
has
going on
Kojima's
there.
face on it.
Yeah,
Missing
just
Kojima.
lapping Kojima's milk up. That's all you do.
If we were
give
naming
me
these
some
episodes, that would be the title.
No, it would not. I don't want to. Do not want to attract the people that would want to click on that
Oh,
episode.
man. If you want to lap up our milk at home, you can email us at info@shayhateseverything.com. Tell us what you think of our top games of 1998. What were your top games of 1998? Did we not mention one of your favorite games? Not even in the honorable mentions? Was it in the dishonorable mentions of 1998? Go listen to those podcasts. It's a great time. Hey, go listen to the flagship podcast. The flagship podcast goes live on July 5th. That's Monday, July 5th.
No, dude. What are you? August 5th.
Oh, my God. It's August 5th.
We're in July right now.
Dude, I'm so
If you
fucked
haven't
up right
listened to the July episode, you should. That is live.
Yes.
At the time that that was our big breakdown of all the great Summer Game Fest stuff, Nintendo Direct, etc.
Yeah.
It's 5.5 hours of non-stop video games.
Dude, what is
Just like this one.
What is it with me and these? I fuck up the date every time.
It's because you're bad at doing this.
No,
it's not that complicated.
Yeah, you're right. I am. But hey, thanks for listening and putting up with my terrible hosting. You can find the Shea Hates Everything podcast wherever you engage with podcasts, literally anywhere. Please be sure to subscribe. Leave a rating or a review. That stuff is really important. That helps people find us. But the most important thing for helping people find us is for you to tell your friends. Our listenership is growing slowly but surely, and it's only because of people like you. I want you telling your friends about the stupid crap that we get up to on this podcast. So I appreciate everybody who's listening. You're all wonderful folks. We will see you at the beginning of August for the flagship podcast, and midway through August for Games That Suck of 1999.
Ooh, we're almost in the new millennia.
That's right. Watch out for Y2K coming at you.